This is the preliminary biennial plan public meeting, March 14th, 2023, for the East Central Regional Arts Council, fiscal years 2024 to 2025. First, I'm going to go over a little bit about Minnesota's arts funding system, and then a little bit about the Regional Arts Council system in Minnesota, and then we'll get to the specifics of the East Central Regional Arts Council. Minnesota's arts funding system can best be understood in terms of the different levels of government funding support for the arts, all the way from the national down to our regional levels. The National Endowment for the Arts gives federal funds to every state. We also have multi-state funding. In our area, this is called Arts Midwest. Their main office is in Minneapolis, and they cover a number of the Midwest states. Next, there's the Minnesota State Arts Board, covering all of Minnesota. And then there are the multi-county regions. There are 11 regional arts councils in Minnesota. The 11 regional arts councils cover the entire state of Minnesota, starting in the northwest corner of Minnesota with Region 1, and going all the way down to the southeast corner, which is Region 10. The metro region is called Region 11, and we are just north of that in Region 7E. The 11 regional arts councils come together as the Regional Arts Council Forum of Minnesota, which is a voice for the arts in Minnesota. Each of the 11 Minnesota Regional Arts Councils has an executive director, and together those executive directors comprise the voting membership of the forum. The mission is that throughout Minnesota, the forum will provide a strong voice and advocacy for small arts organizations and community-based arts-related activities. The Forum of Regional Arts Councils has various activities with our partners, and we all serve the state of Minnesota together. First, there's the Minnesota Citizens for the Arts. That is a 30-member board of directors. There's a representative on the MCA board from each region in Minnesota. There's an Arts Advocacy Day or week each spring at the state capitol. It's really important to let our legislators know the work we're doing and how the taxpayers' funds are being invested across the state. Then there's the McKnight Foundation. The McKnight Foundation has a friendly, long-term relationship with regional arts councils in order to serve artists in Minnesota. The Forum of Regional Arts Councils of Minnesota can apply for funding for both the forum and its specific projects, and the individual regional arts councils all apply for funding to the McKnight Foundation to fund individual artists in our areas. We also work with the Minnesota State Arts Board. We are partners with the Minnesota State Arts Board, but we're not part of the Minnesota State Arts Board. We do have a fiscal agent contract with the Minnesota State Arts Board, so they are the Regional Arts Council's fiscal sponsor. We work together on outcome evaluation. We work together on data collection and telling the stories, the art stories around the state and how the arts have impacted people and communities. We've also worked together on our misuse of funds policy. In law, Minnesota state law, the regional arts councils are required to create and submit a biennial plan in the spring of odd-numbered years to the Minnesota State Arts Board. Components of the plan are clearly outlined in rules, legislative rules. The State Arts Board provides a checklist and a budget template. The Minnesota State Arts Board has an official standing committee called the Arts Advisory Committee. It includes 2 Regional Arts Council directors and 1 Regional Arts Council appointed member, and then 2 Minnesota State Arts Board members and 1 Minnesota State Arts Board appointed member at large. The main task of this advisory committee is to review all 11 biennial plans, approve them, provide comments and potential suggestions, and this happens during the spring of the odd years. Today, we are going over the biennial plan fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25 for the East Central Regional Arts Council. The East Central Regional Arts Council's mission is to support the arts and bring the life-enhancing values they afford to Region 7E residents. The East Central Regional Arts Council, affectionately known as ECRAC, is Region 7E in Minnesota, as I mentioned earlier. 7E is the highlighted counties here, highlighted in green: Chisago, Isanti, Kanabec, Mille Lacs, and Pine counties in east central Minnesota. Next, I'd like to talk about demographics a little bit. The East Central region includes 5 counties, as I mentioned. They're located in the Central Minnesota Planning Region. Region 7E was home to 171,703 people in 2021 and comprised 3% of the state's total population. This region, 7E, saw a 4.8% population increase since 2010, making it the 7th largest of the 13 economic development regions. Economic development regions have a little bit different regional boundaries than regional arts councils. So that's 7th largest of the 13 economic development regions in total population, and is the 6th fastest growing. In comparison, the state of Minnesota saw a 7.6% gain from 2010 to 2021. Chisago County is the largest county in Region 7E and is the 18th largest county of 87 in the state of Minnesota, with just under 57,500 people in 2021. It added 3,582 people, which was a 6.6% increase since 2010, which is the 20th fastest growth rate. Isanti County experienced the largest growth rate in the region, with an increase of 4,090 people, and now has nearly 42,000 people. The next largest county is Pine County with 29,302, but Pine has declined in population since 2010. Mille Lacs County increased slightly and has 26,867 people. Kanabec County is the smallest county in the region with 16,159 people, and it is the 52nd largest county in the state out of 87. With an aging population, Region 7E has experienced a natural decrease, more deaths than births, of 177 people from 2020 to 2021. However, the region gained population because of net migration, with an increase of 2,776 residents moving into the area, mostly from other parts of Minnesota or from other states. In total, there was an increase of 2,580 people due to the combination of migration and natural increase. There isn't much international migration in Region 7E, but Region 7E is home to 2,913 foreign-born residents, which is about 1.7% of the population. The number of immigrants in the region increased by 26.8% since 2010, which is higher than the statewide growth rate of 8.2%. Just under 40%, 1,132 people, of these immigrants were from Asia, while the second largest number was from Central and South America, accounting for 28% of the region's foreign-born population. Lastly, there were 506 people from Europe, but this population has decreased since 2010. Population by age group. Region 7E does have an older population than the rest of the state, with 18.4% of residents aged 65 years and older, compared to 16.8% statewide. In addition, Region 7E had a much higher percentage of people in the 45 to 64-year-old age group, and consequently had a lower percentage of people in the 25 to 44-year-old age group, which is typically the leading edge of the prime working years. A large portion of the area's population is part of the baby boom generation, which is creating a significant shift in regional demographics over time. Between 2000 and 2020, the group 55 years or older added more than 27,000 residents in 7E. Population projections by age group. Despite the more rapid recent growth, Region 7E is expected to experience a slight population decline in the next 20 years. According to the State Demographic Center, Region 7E is expected to lose 458 residents in the years or from 2023 to 2043, which is a 0.3% decrease. In comparison, the state of Minnesota is projected to grow by 9.4%. There will be population growth, however, in the older age groups. Region 7E is projected to add 9,000 people aged 75 years and over, as well as about 2,500 people in the 45 to 54-year-old age group. However, Region 7E is also projected to lose over 4,800 people under 45 years of age and about 7,100 people in the 55 to 74-year-old age group, as the current baby boomers continue to age. Population by race. Region 7E's population is less diverse than the state of Minnesota's, but it is becoming more diverse over time. In 2020, 90.5% of the region's residents reported white alone as their race, compared to 77.5% of residents statewide. At 1.9%, Region 7E had a higher percentage of American Indian residents than the rest of the state, but otherwise had a much smaller percentage of people of all other race and origin groups, especially Black or African American, Asian, and Hispanic or Latino. With just under 8,000 people, the largest racial or ethnic group other than white is people of two or more races, which increased 246% from 2010 to 2020. Conversely, the region saw a 0.5% decline in the number of white residents. Every other group saw increases, and 4 groups grew faster than 30% over the 2 decades. Employment characteristics. With 65% of people aged 16 years and over in the labor force, Region 7E had lower labor force participation rate than the state's 69.3%. The region had lower labor force participation rates than the state in all but the oldest age group, and the overall rate was even lower because a higher percentage of Region 7E's labor force was in the older age groups. Minnesota's unemployment rate was 3.8%, and the unemployment rate in Region 7E was 4.6%. More information on the unemployment rate is that Region 7E has consistently had higher unemployment rates than the state of Minnesota, typically hovering about 1.5% above the state's rate. According to DEED's local area unemployment statistics, Region 7E's rate rose as high as 10.8% in 2009, which was the highest of all the 13 economic development regions, and 3% above the state rate. Since then, the state and our region's economies have recovered and unemployment rates have dropped, with 7E reporting 4.9% in 2019 before spiking to 7.6% in 2020. Rates then returned to near record lows in 2021. Region 7E is also a net labor exporter, having more workers than available jobs. In sum, 32,272 workers both lived and worked in Region 7E in 2019, while 15,843 workers drove into the region from surrounding counties for work, compared to 50,704 workers who lived in the region but drove to surrounding counties for work. That's 50,704 workers who live in the region but drive to surrounding counties for work. According to DEED's cost of living tool, the basic needs budget for an average Minnesota family, which consists of 2 adults and 1 child, with 1 full-time and 1 part-time worker, was $60,540 in 2021. The cost of living for a similar family in Region 7E was higher than that at $61,656. In fact, $61,656, the cost of living for a single family in Region 7E, is the second highest of the 13 economic development regions in the state, and it's behind only the Twin Cities metropolitan area. The highest monthly costs were for transportation, food, and housing, and the cost of the region's transportation was significantly higher than the state. In order to meet the basic cost of living for the region, the workers in the family scenario described would need to earn $19.76 per hour over the course of 60 hours per work week. Region 7E's poverty rate was 8.4%, which was below the statewide rate of 9.3%. Like incomes, poverty levels varied very widely by race and origin. It was estimated that over 26% of the region's American Indian and 22.3% of Hispanic or Latino residents were below the poverty level in 2020. That's compared to just 8% of the white population. The data source for the previous information was Economic Development Region 7E 2022 Regional Profile, updated in October 2022. Another lens to look at how people are doing in the region is to look at the percentage of students in public schools who are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. In fact, this is commonly used to understand how many school-aged children live in low-income households. In Region 7E, 38.7% of K-12 students received free and reduced lunches. Chisago County had the lowest rate at 25%, and Mille Lacs County had the highest rate at 49.5%. The data source for this is the Minnesota Department of Education student enrollment data. The poverty rate from 2015 to 2019 in the state of Minnesota was 9.7%. In Region 7E, the poverty rate in the 3 northern counties from 2015 to 2019 had some of the highest poverty levels. Kanabec County at 10%, Mille Lacs County at 12.4%, and Pine County at 11%. The 2 southern counties in Region 7E are doing a little bit better than the state as a whole in terms of poverty levels. Chisago during 2015 to 2019 was at 6%, and Isanti was at 7.3% for a poverty level. The statewide indicator for children under the age of 18 living in poverty was 12.2%. However, Mille Lacs County had a level of 17.1% of children under the age of 18 in poverty, which also ties back to Mille Lacs County's poverty rate, 12.4% being in the top 20 of all counties in Minnesota. This data source was from the Minnesota Public Health and Environmental Data by county. Now that we've looked at where Region 7E is and looked at statistics about the population of 7E, we're going to talk about how the East Central Regional Arts Council, or ECRAC, can serve this population. This is the preliminary biennial plan, work plan information for the years fiscal year 2024 and 2025. Priority 1 for ECRAC is to provide technical assistance opportunities, arts information services, both to artists and arts organization. This includes resources related to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, otherwise known as IDEA, and as or if needed regarding the pandemic. Our strategies are to foster visionary, skilled arts leaders and organizations, to serve as a clearinghouse of information on best practices and successful programs for artists and organizations that provide arts programming. Our measurable outcome is people develop art skills or knowledge. ECRAC Priority 2 is to offer grants to artists and to organizations that provide arts activities. The strategies are to provide a portfolio of grants to artists, to skilled arts leaders, and to organizations that provide arts programming and services. Our measurable outcome here is that people develop art skills or knowledge, and people have access to arts experiences. ECRAC Priority 3 is to provide art exhibit space to artists and arts organizations. The strategy is to exhibit regional artists' artwork and to exhibit artwork in Region 7E. The measurable outcome is that people access arts experiences. And you may ask, what is Region 7E's definition of art? And I can tell you that it is very inclusive. From visual art to music, from poetry to theater, from public art and public art murals and sculptures to art in media and videography and photography and, of course, traditional arts. ECRAC Priority 4 is to oversee all aspects of the East Central Regional Arts Council administration. Strategy is to provide an accountable arts organization system and be responsible stewards of public and other funding. The measurable outcome here is the organization provides and develops capacities that advance the arts. ECRAC has a portfolio of grant programs for both artists and organizations. The first one is the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund Legacy Grant for individuals. $2,000 are available. The grant deadlines are October 1st, February 1st, and April 1st. There is a required open to the public event. The review criteria are merit and artistic quality, ability of the applicant to accomplish the project, a demonstrated need for the project, including underserved populations. Eligibility requirements for all individual artist grants are that the applicant must be any individual who is a permanent resident for at least 6 months in one of the 5 counties of Region 7E, and the applicant must be at least 18 years of age. The applicant must be an individual artist and not working on a collaborative project. In addition, artists are limited to 1 active ECRAC grant at a time. The next grant program is Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund Art Project Legacy Grants for organizations. These amounts are $5,000 to $20,000 grants. The deadlines, October 1st, February 1st, and April 1st. The grant review criteria are merit and artistic quality, ability of the applicant to accomplish the project, and a demonstrated need for the project, including underserved populations. Eligibility requirements. They must be an organization, like a 501c3, or a unit of government, schools, and nonprofits. Groups of 3 or more can also apply if they use a fiscal agent that is a 501c3 or a unit of government or a school. The next program is Resiliency Grants. This is also funded with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund dollars. These are up to $600 grants. There is a rolling deadline of July 1st to June 30th each fiscal year. The grant review criteria are merit and artistic quality, ability of the applicant to accomplish the project, and a demonstrated need for the project, including underserved populations. Eligibility requirements, arts organizations or artists that have a need. There is a required open to the public event that can be, at the very least, an accessible online virtual event. Essential Arts Grants, were formerly known as Operating Support Grants, are for arts organizations. They are $5,000 and are also funded with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund dollars. This is an annual deadline of March 1st for a project that lasts from July 1st to June 30th. The review criteria are artistic merit, artistic quality, and ability of the organization to accomplish the stated goals and objectives, and a demonstrated need of the organization, including an ability to provide service for underserved populations. Eligibility requirements are nonprofit 501c3 arts organizations in Region 7E. As part of ECRAC's General Fund grant programs, there's the Small and Art Project Assistance Fund. This is, as I mentioned, funded with the State General Fund and can be supplemented with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund dollars as needed. The deadlines are October 1st, February 1st, and April 1st. The review criteria are the merit and the artistic quality of the project, the ability of the applicant or organization to accomplish the project, and a demand or need for the grant project or program in the community served, including underserved populations. Eligibility requirements, organizations, units of government, schools, and nonprofits. ECRAC has scholarships for kids that are in kindergarten to 12th grade. These scholarships are up to $600 and are from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. There's a March 1st annual deadline. The review criteria are artistic quality and merit of the proposed project, the students' artist goals, and, as age appropriate, their artistic background. Eligibility requirements: high school, middle school, or elementary school kids intending to enhance their artistic talents. The students must live in one of the Region 7E counties, and if the student is under 18, it's the parent that enters into the grant contract with the Arts Council. ECRAC has the Art in Our Schools grant, which is $5,000, up from $3,000 last year, and this comes from the State General Fund with Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund dollars, or supplementation when needed. The deadlines are October 1st, February 1st, and April 1st. The review criteria are artistic quality and merit, merit of the residency plan, including the artist or field trip schedule, a community, in other words, an open to the public event or component, and the ability of the school to accomplish the project. With funding from the McKnight Foundation, ECRAC has available individual artist mid-career grants of $3,600. The grant deadlines are October 1st, February 1st, and April 1st. Grants are reviewed according to the quality of the artist's work, the quality of the proposed project, and the artist's resume. And finally, the last of the grant programs is the Essential Artist Award for professional artists. These are $9,000 awards funded with McKnight Foundation funding. There's an annual March 1st deadline. The review criteria include the artistic quality of the work samples submitted, the merit and feasibility of the plan submitted, and the artist's ability to accomplish. You've heard me talking a little bit about underserved populations, so I wanted to touch on that a little bit further. ECRAC has always been committed to this responsibility and to the values of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. In the context of ECRAC grant programming and services, underserved or underrepresented populations are those represented by people and groups defined based on age, gender, disability, sexual orientation, culture, and race. There is a much more detailed explanation in the grant guidelines, but this is a brief overview for you. In addition to these grant programs, ECRAC has other forms of assistance in the arts for the region. Grant writing technical assistance, grant information sessions, grant management training for once you get the grant, past approved grant application resources when you're writing the grant, and assistance with grant change requests once a grant is funded and something needs to be updated. We provide information on other resources as needed, including providing information on inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility. We have scholarships for Zoom subscriptions for groups of artists and arts organizations, and we have various training reimbursements for artists and arts organizations. We have the Essential Arts e-newsletter and alerts. We have the ECRAC website. We have at least 2 art shows per year, including the annual Image Art Show, which will have its 36th year in November of 2023. We have art show display equipment that we rent out. We have an arts library of donated arts books. We have workshops for artists and arts organizations to assist in their business skills and other development building, including entrepreneurialism. We have referrals to other services or service providers. And we are working on partnering even better with existing providers of services to underrepresented groups and community groups, because ECRAC has made a commitment to overcoming bias and to building diversity and inclusion, both in grant making and in providing services. After all of this text and demographics, I thought you'd appreciate a work of art. This artwork is entitled Bears Aren't Blue. It's by Dustin Wayne of Princeton, and this was a purchase award during Image 2022. ECRAC now has about 60 works of art in the permanent collection that we're proud to have and display. Art made by people in all of the counties, people of all ages, and it's a wonderful opportunity to see artwork going back 36 years. In conclusion, you can visit us in person at the East Central Regional Arts Council office and gallery in Hinckley, Minnesota, which you can see pictured here at the top. My picture is on the left-hand side. I'm Executive Director Mary Minnick Daniels, and on the right-hand side is our Grant Program Officer, Katina Eklund. As always, we welcome any of your questions, your concerns, your thoughts, your input, or even if you want more information, you can go to our website, www.ecrac.org. That's www.ecrac.org, and you can find all of our contact information there. Thanks for listening.